Gerard Como has become a freedom fighter by accident. He's the New Brunswick man that was caught transporting 14 cases of beer and 3 bottles of booze from Quebec across provincial borders to his home province of New Brunswick. So why did he do this? Well, beer is actually half the price in Quebec when compared with prices in New Brunswick. So who wouldn't? What Como didn't know was that the police had him under surveillance in a sting operation. This is going to sound crazy, but in Canada, provinces have their own set of rules, and according to New Brunswick's, Como's haul was beyond the legal limit of 12 pints of beer and a bottle of liquor or wine allowed across provincial borders. Como had his booze taken away and was fined close to $300, but he actually decided not to pay it because he wanted his day in court to fight the law and fight for freedom. After months and months of court battles, he was finally acquitted and all charges were dropped. A New Brunswick judge ruled that the actual rules are unconstitutional because according to the Canadian Constitution of 1867, goods should enter freely between provinces. But that really put a bee in the government of New Brunswick's bonnet, and they appealed that decision. I mean, forget the Constitution, right? Think of how much money they would lose on sin taxes in the province if people could now just go and buy much cheaper ales just right across the border. In fact, they tried to bypass the Court of Queen's Bench and go straight to the Court of Appeal, but they were denied. Which brings me to the most recent twist in this case. Since the Court of Appeal denied the province of New Brunswick's request, they've now turned to the Supreme Court of Canada to overturn that decision. And this could be huge in regard to breaking down all of these crazy and unconstitutional trade barriers that I've been talking about so much. This one case could change everything and anything, and it's up to the Supreme Court to decide. They can either decide to overturn the decision, or they can elevate the case to hear it, which means that this new appeal could result in the Supreme Court hearing the case right away. It's a long shot, however. It's very unlikely that the court will hear this case, but it's of national importance. Canadian governments are denying citizens of the right to free trade without barriers, which is promised to us in the Constitution. It was an agreement made when this country amalgamated, and it was supposed to be a benefit of confederation. I've talked about the government overreach when it comes to trade barriers, and all these measures do is benefit the government and the businesses that they protect. They don't benefit the consumers, who are essential to the survival of both of these entities. The government simply shouldn't be involved in markets or picking and choosing winners in business, which truly are outcomes of government intervention. So far, the Supreme Court hasn't responded, but either way, it looks like the case will be brought to them. The Canadian Constitution Foundation, who joined forces with Como's lawyers in New Brunswick very early on, say that, and I quote from Executive Director Howard Anglin, "It's long past time for the Supreme Court to enforce the Constitution's free trade guarantee and tear down the unconstitutional walls the provinces have erected to the free flow of goods across Canada." It sounds like Como's team, even if the SCC doesn't hear the case immediately, will be ready to bring it to them once they do hear the decision. Once that decision does come down, I'll certainly update you. For the Rebel.media, I'm Holly Nicholas. Speaking of unconstitutional trade barriers, have you had a chance to check out my petition at beerfreedom.ca? Click the link below and sign to show your support for breaking down interprovincial trade barriers in Canada.